It's like driving a 1941 2-ton bouncy old truck with a racing engine in it. That's what it's like driving this truck. But it's had some upgrades. So it has power steering, and it has power brakes. It even has disc brakes, which was a kit, a custom fabrication of some brackets that allowed for disc brakes up front. So it stops very well. Acceleration is very good. And the power steering, it's 2 turns lock to lock is what we call it. So that's all the way to the left. If you turn all the way to the right, it's 2 complete turns of the steering wheel. So it's very quick ratioed steering, which makes it handle a little bit like a go-kart. And then top speed now is, I mean, it would do well over 100, but I don't because it's got the old wheels on this and they're not safe. So I take it 65, 70 is pretty much tops for this. At some point I may have wheels made, but I'm more concerned about the looking original, looking like it did in Jeepers Creepers 1 than it is going fast. And so that's the limitation probably on this is the wheels. Otherwise, the rest of the drivetrain would take this thing well over 100. And let me tell you, you would not want to have to swerve, get a blowout, or hit a serious dip in the road going fast, because again, it is a 2-ton 1940 truck suspension-wise, and it would be easy to lose control. So quite a beast. I had a blast shooting the chase scene in Jeepers Creepers 3 when the police cruiser's coming up on the Jeepers Creepers truck. That was so much fun. My family and I were on the sidelines. We were with 20 or 30 other people. I don't know, it's a huge group, always on the sidelines of a shoot. And I remember they had already shot the machine gun portion of the chase and the oncoming portion, and they were getting ready to film the very first part of the chase scene when the police cruiser is coming up on the creeper van. And so I'm standing on the sidelines, and the director of photography comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, you should be behind the wheel during some of this driving." And I was like, yeah, I would really love to do that. But, you know, I'm not, you know, union, and I'm not a stunt driver. He said, well, it is your truck. And I said, yeah. And he said, registered to you? And I said, yeah. He says, where in the country can't you drive your truck? And I thought, yeah. So I got behind the wheel. Man, that was a blast. So wherever it's an aerial shot where basically the drone is approaching the creeper truck, I'm behind the wheel there. Had my little walkie-talkie, and they would communicate with me, you know, too fast, too slow. I was the pace vehicle. The vehicle in front always sets the pace for the vehicles behind it, including the drone. And so they would set my speed, and I just held it. And yeah, that was awesome. And I didn't get credit in the movie, by the way, for driver. It's also interesting, you know, when you're filming a driving scene for a movie, they are filmed very slow. That's something that a lot of people don't know. I think that our top speed was 25 or 30, I don't remember. Remember, the drone has to keep up with the lead vehicle, and drones are not always that fast. And so we just set a slow pace, and then they speed it up in post and make it look like, you know, a normal high-speed chase, or a normal speed chase in this case, I guess. And, you know, not to ruin the magic, but that's something that's unusual that people don't think about, you know, that you guys would probably like to know. Is the creeper truck fast? I guess it's all relative, but the answer basically is yes, it is. I remember the transportation department was just so beside themselves with this truck about how well it performed, how fast it was. And all during the shooting of Jeepers 3, it turns out that we had a bad valve adjustment. All the valves were adjusted too tight for all you car guys out there. And so when we got back and finished with shooting, we were driving it around and it started to wear the tip off of one of the push rods. And so we readjusted everything, and man, it just performed better than it's ever performed before. How fast is it? It would probably run in the 14s, which, you know, is fast for almost 7,000 pounds, at least 6,500 pounds. That's fast, that's pretty quick. And so it accelerates very fast for being such a large vehicle. I played a pretty big role in Jeepers 3. I don't know why. It was interesting. I mean, I owned the truck, and the director was communicating with me, trying to find out where the truck is and did it run, that sort of thing. But I remember I was involved even during scripting. And for some reason, I was like one of the first people to read the Jeepers Creepers 3 new script, not Cathedral, but the new script for Jeepers 3. I was like one of the first to read it, and he was going over stuff. Maybe because the truck had a big role in the film, I don't know, but it was quite an honor to do that. And you know, things would come up like a spear coming out of the console of the truck. Well, there's no room for a console in this truck. It's a very tight, small little old truck, and so you know, that we ended up taking out one of the seats, and that was what we had to do to make the script work. But it was interesting because he was convinced that this truck was a Rio. And if you look at the making of the movie for Jeepers Creepers 1, if you look at the making of the movie disc, he refers to this truck as a Rio and talks about how they found a Rio. I had a hard time convincing him that it wasn't a Rio, but when he finally came around to the thought that this was in fact a Chevrolet cabover, he didn't want to change that in the script. He said, "Tom, just think of this as it's a Chevrolet playing the role of a Rio." And I said, okay, but you know, there's going to be a lot of car guys that are going to know what this is. I mean, it's not like an actor playing a role. It is something specifically. And I said, I think you're going to have some fans at least that aren't going to like the idea of you calling it something that it's not. I couldn't convince him. He was just adamant about it being a Rio. However, during reading the scripts and about 2 iterations later, there it was, Chevrolet cabover, you know, and it made sense. It's referencing where the tow truck driver, Frank, talks about the truck. That's where the name of the truck would come up. And I'm glad that it got fixed, because that was going to be hard for me to deal with, but also for the fans out there. especially the car guys, the truck guys that know what it is. It just wouldn't have made sense having it be a Rio. Jonathan Breck loved the creeper truck. He just had a blast with it. He so much so that he wanted to drive it from where he first saw the truck on over to the set where the police cruiser rolled over and the truck pulled up on it. So he hopped in and he drove it over to that spot. And then I just remember he had to practice getting comfortable with the truck because he has to be very comfortable with his truck. And it is not a big door, by the way, and it's not a huge cab, so it's kind of tight spaces. He had to get good at getting out of his truck, popping the door open, standing on the running board, jumping down with his axe, right? And then slamming the door. And so he probably practiced that 40 or 50 times. But he had a lot of fun doing it, and he had a blast driving this truck onto set.